Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Richard Stenning and I am the official Guinness World Record adjudicator for this exciting record attempt. It gives me great pleasure to formally announce this Guinness World Record attempt will be to set a new record for the most views of a cybersecurity lesson video on YouTube in 24 hours. This attempt is a part of Security Serious Week, which is run by Askenzie PR and partners KnowBe4 and OneLogin. There will be a Q&A at the end of the session, so please write your questions in the chat with the instructor you'd like to answer. So without any further delay, I'd like to now hand over to Javad Malik from KnowBe4 and Neve Muldoon from OneLogin, the instructors for this cybersecurity lesson. Best of luck.
Thank you very much, Richard, and welcome everybody to this training session today, where we are going to be talking about ransomware. So, as said, my name is Javad Malik. I've spent my entire professional career working in cybersecurity, IT security. I've seen many trends come and go, and ransomware is one of the most scary ones. I currently work for KnowBe4. Now, the concept of a ransom is probably not alien to anyone that's ever watched a movie of some sort of description. Someone takes something that is near and dear to you and then sends you a note that says, give us some money if you ever want to see this thing again. It could be your child, it could be your yacht, it could be a rare painting, anything like that. And this has been going on for many years. What's changed now is in the modern age, we have become extremely dependent on our digital devices. I'd argue some people love their mobile phones more than they might care about their children. But what we do is we put all of our memories on our digital devices. We have all of our documents there. If you don't have your phone with you or can't access your computer, you are pretty much crippled. You might not have access to anything because everything is digital these days. So criminals realize that something that is really valuable to us is now on a computer, and they can access it remotely over the internet and gain access to it and lock you out of it and steal that data. And they can ransom that. So that's ransom software or ransomware or malware. That's where the name comes from. So what they're doing, they're taking your access away from your data on your computers, and they're saying, give us some money. Now, this is something that has gained a lot of media coverage in recent years, but there was a variation of this out as early as 1989 with the famous AIDS cop Trojan. But this was kind of easy to reverse and get out of. But over time, there have been many more variations. There's better advancements in technology. You have what they call asymmetric encryption, which allows attackers to encrypt all your files. And there's really, it's near impossible for you to decrypt or get back the data. And this has improved and enhanced. I mean, this is a screenshot taken from WannaCry, which made national headline or international headlines back in 2017. In the UK, it crippled pretty much the entire NHS health service systems. And you can see when you go to log on to your machine, instead of getting your desktop and your mouse and everything, you're greeted with a screen like this. And there's slight variations, but basically says, we have your files. If you want to get them back, pay us $300 in Bitcoin. If you don't pay within a certain amount of time, we're going to double the fee. And if you don't pay within a week or so, we'll just delete your files and you'll never see them ever again. So it's a really scary proposition. What we've seen is that their tactics have really evolved over the years. So they've built it into a very large criminal business empire. What they do now is they don't just come and encrypt the data or lock you out of your computer, but they will steal your data as well. And they'll steal the data. They'll spend longer in your computer to see what's the most valuable data to you. Maybe if you're a photographer, for example, they'll say, well, your photos are far more valuable than your documents. So let's steal all of this person's photos. If you might have just shot a wedding recently. Oh, now you can't get access to that. That's actual loss of business right there. If you're a doctor, I might go and steal all of your patient records. That's not only is that inconvenient, but it embarrasses your patients. There's regulatory considerations there and all sorts. And even just generally, I think if you think about what's on your computer these days, if you can't access it, that's one thing. But then if someone steals it, on these computers, we hold some of our most innermost secrets and some of our most sensitive information. They can do whatever they want. And this is a huge business because, as you can imagine, people will then be desperate and they will do whatever they can to get back that data, and they will pay money. In fact, between 2018 and 2019, the FBI reports that nearly $145 million was spent in recovering data from ransomware. And this is only the known amount. The actual figures exceed this far greater. So you can imagine there are ransomware gangs out there whose job it is to send this software onto computers, to lock up your files, to steal your data, and they're probably making over $50 million a year. And that's big business. I mean, some of these probably making an excess of 100 million a year. They're probably large enough to be listed on the stock exchange. So not only do they ransom, they can take your data and they can sell it on, and they can just leak it and embarrass you. And there have been stories of this going on and on. There's been operators that have hacked into organizations and or state departments and leaked that data. Even some of the largest companies in the world who you would think have really good security, they've been impacted by this all. In fact, when they find out that they've breached something that's really valuable, like in one instance, they hacked into an attorney's office that handled high value clients, they actually doubled their ransom. They said, well, you know, we were going to ask for 21 million, but now pay us 42 million because we actually have contracts belonging to some celebs. There's also a plastic surgery clinic. They got attacked. And not only did they ask the clinic to pay them money, but they started reaching out to some of their patients and said, well, we have all the information relating to your procedures, your before and after pictures. Pay us some money or we might start posting it on Facebook. Very horrible things. And then they have dedicated websites set up saying these are all the companies whose data we have, and we're going to release it soon. So ransomware is absolutely terrible. It's one of the most horrific sort of viruses or malware out there in the world today. Not just because of its technical damage, but because of the psychological and emotional grief that it can cause its victims. So now we're all aware of that. I think the question then turns into, like, it is terrible, yes, but how does it actually get in? I've spoken about what it does, but how does it actually get into our computers? And depending on who you ask, there's normally a lot of finger pointing, but I'll make this simple. And there are three things that I'm going to cover today as to how ransomware gets in and how it impacts your systems. So the number one way is phishing. Phishing is a technique used where something is sent to you via email normally or text or something. And the idea is that it looks like it's come from a trusted source. So you open the file, you download something, you click on a link, and it's not actually that person, it's a bad person that sent it to you. And by undertaking that action, you've now infected your machine. So maybe someone will send you an email with a Word document attached to it. And you open up the Word document and it says that, well, you need to enable content to view this because it's not compatible. And if you click enable content, what do you think is going to happen? That's right, in the background, they will download ransomware. And before you know it, you can't access anything on your computer and you have to pay money to get it back. You might get an email from something claiming to be from a social media site that you use. What happens when you click on the link? You get it? It's ransomware. A service that you use. Oh no, I don't want to lose access to my Netflix. I want to binge watch that series. So you panic, you click on the link rather than navigating to the site directly. And same thing. It could be from any of your favorite providers altogether. There's also the issue where people phone you up, and they will phone you up and they will claim to be from either your bank, or they might say they're from Microsoft. And they might be saying that we're from Microsoft, there's an issue on your computer, there's a virus, you need to go to your computer and I will talk you through how to shut it down. And what they'll do, they'll get you on your computer and get you to type in some commands or go to some website. And what that does is it gives the person on the phone complete access, remote access to your computer, and then they can do whatever they want with it. So always be mindful of that. And then we have text messages. We have lots of a rise in text messages coming through, SMS messages, and it will be like, oh, your parcel's been delayed, you have unpaid fees, or this is your bank, click here, and you get the trend. So basically, we want to be very careful in what links we click on, what files we download, try to look at who it's been sent from, whether it's the same language that you use. And if you're ever in doubt, don't ever click on the link, navigate to the site directly. So if you get an email claiming to be from Apple, don't click on the invoice there, log on directly to apple.com, to your website, to your account, and check in there if there's anything. If there's not, then just delete the email, ignore it. Don't be tempted to open the attachments. That's the number one way people get in. The second way is weak credentials. And these are your passwords. And if there's one thing you know from this, if you take away from this, is stop thinking passwords and think about passphrases. So maybe your password is ABBA. It's a short password, really easy to guess, not very complex. Change it to Mamma Mia, here we go again. It's easy to remember, but it's very long, very complex. Another thing that you can use is a password vault or a password manager. It's a bit of software you can download. It will generate a unique password for you. It will remember them all for you. And so it keeps all your passwords safe in one place. So you only need to remember one master password to unlock that. And then you can use the password manager to fill in all your passwords. And it's a very good way. And the final way in passwords is MFA. No, it's not a French assurance company, but it stands for multi-factor authentication, or sometimes it's called two-factor authentication. And what that is basically, in addition to when you log onto a service or a site, you need your email and your password, but then it might text you a code that you need to put in addition. Or you might have some software that generates a new code every 60 seconds or so, and you need to put that number in. Or maybe you'll have a physical device that you need to plug into your machine to log in. And all of this really, really reduces the risk that someone can actually break into your account. So passphrases, vaults, and multi-factor authentication are what we need to remember when it comes to credentials. Final thing is patching. Every so often you get a software update, your phone or your computer will say new updates are available. Just download them, because a lot of times they will contain security fixes for known vulnerabilities that criminals might be using to break into your computer. So whenever they become available, find a suitable time and update them as soon as possible. So in summary, I think what we need to look at is we need to build a routine of cyber hygiene in the same way that we take care of our personal hygiene. So personally, we will do things like wash our hands every day, brush our teeth, wash our dishes. You know, all these things we will do on a daily basis, and these all contribute to our personal hygiene, and they keep us in a good state of health and, you know, pleasant to be around with other people. Similarly, bear these things in mind for cyber. Keep a backup of your data, that's valuable. Be aware of these phishing attacks that take place. Use a strong passphrase, use a password vault, you know, patch your systems, and be careful of what you share online. Now, with this all, there is some good news and there is some bad news. I'll start with the bad news first. The bad news is that you can't defend against everything all the time. And everything is just about risk reduction. But if you do take these steps and you do plan for the worst, you can recover a lot easier. And this is something that I encourage you, these tips, to share, not just in your work, but with your colleagues, but at home with your family as well. The good news is that if you do remain wary of phishing attacks, if you do secure your accounts to the best of your ability, and you do keep your software up to date, not only can you protect against ransomware, which is probably one of the worst things to attack, but you can probably, using these three techniques, you can probably protect yourself against a whole host of cyber attacks that are out there today, because they will take advantage of one of these three things. There's, of course, many other things that we should be doing, like not connecting to public Wi-Fi's where we're not sure of who runs it, plugging in unknown USB drives, and all these kinds of things. I mean, that's all good, but I think if there were three things to start with, these would be it. So I'd like to encourage you to spread some of these messages with your friends, your family, your colleagues, put in place a program, and just like try to attack these continuously. Now, like I said, you don't stop everything with this. There will be the odd occasion where something gets through. So what do you do in that case? And for that, I will pass over to my friend, Neve from One Login. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Javad, and thank you so much for sharing great awareness, insights onto the various different threats that we face that can expose us and make us vulnerable to cybersecurity incidents. And really being aware and prepared via carrying out tabletop exercises is how we reduce the business impact and consequences. I'm Neve Muldoon, Senior Director here at One Login and DPO. I've over 20 years experience in security to date. Again, that's my whole entire career, just like Javad's. And in fact, I got my career opportunity as a result of a cybersecurity incident and event. So I'm well used to dealing and being part of incident management, the process, the events, managing and making decisions around them. I thought I'd start off this training session with an old Irish saying, "Ar scad na céile is na war na daoine." And that really means, in English, we're in it together, and we're in it together against the fight against cybercrime. And the best way that we can be able to beat it is to be prepared to support our business, make informed decisions, reducing the business consequences and risks. My favorite Irish footballer once said, "Fail to prepare, prepare to fail." It's all about preparation, and preparation when those cybersecurity events and incidents happen. How and who needs to be involved. And the best way to do that is through tabletop exercises. The realized benefits are best quoted here by leading experts in the field. Sava Haverson states, "A cybersecurity tabletop exercise is an interactive simulation of a real-world incident scenario for the purpose of assessing the preparedness of your incident response program in a safe environment." Katia Luja says, "Conducting tabletop exercises gives your customers a clear picture of how seriously your organization is committed to planning for unseen cybersecurity events. And also, since conducting routine tabletop exercises consumes considerable resources and time, your customers can use the evidence of these exercises to be assured that you are not solely relying on certifications, policies, and procedures to create a solid information security program." Well said. Tabletop exercises, their purpose is really to follow the anatomy of a security incident, the 6 stages, and for you to validate that your organization is prepared at each stage to make the relevant actions, decisions that will reduce the business impact and consequences. Preparation, detection, triage, investigation, remediation, and recovery. There's various different types of tabletops. The main 2 are walkthrough exercises and then a real life simulation exercises. From my experience, you're better off starting off with a walkthrough, involving the right people, getting them comfortable with the tabletop exercises and familiar with the different scenarios that you're going through. And then maybe after 3 or 4 of those exercises, assessing really how would you react in that event or that incident by having a simulation carried out. Tabletop scenarios should both cover physical security and cyber security. They should look at the people-related threats, the process-related threats, and the technology-related threats. People-related threats around disgruntled employee behavior, as well as the insider threats. Process-related around segregation of duties, controls that separate systems and data. And also the technologies like DDoS and ransomware attacks. People and roles. Courtney Harrison, our leader in HR here at OneLogin, would love me when I say this. Here's where the organization structure goes out the door. The incident commander is the leader that everybody must listen to and follow during a tabletop exercise. They are the person that asks the questions, make the decisions, record the decisions, and go through the exercises. Another key role in these exercises is an observer, having someone that watches every single person in the room, every single role, and can really help determine what worked well, what needs to be worked on and improved on in the next exercises. It's important to take input from the threat landscape at a global level, and also to look at your organization and the markets and industries that you operate, and what are the various different security-related events that your organization is receiving, and how you've responded, and really testing that to help you mature and develop your cybersecurity program to the next level. The components then of a tabletop exercise. So you first of all outline the purpose of and the objective of the exercise. So is it a ransomware simulation? Is it a DDoS? Is it an insider threat via disgruntled employee? You outline the rules of engagement. So the time frame that it's going to take, how individuals are to show up, how they are to respond, what actions are they to take. And then you go through the scenario execution, the various different stages of the tabletop as more information and events happen. From that, a report is produced. The report is key and critical because it helps you document the lessons learned at each stage of the cybersecurity attack. And I recommend you follow the anatomy of a breach when you're documenting your report and actions. Actions will fall into a number of categories: short-term actions, long-term actions. It's important to assign a delivery manager for each of the actions associated with the tabletop exercises, because that person will be accountable for making sure any actions, gaps, shortcomings, or any items that need maturing actually get followed through and delivered. I recommend also sharing the report with your executive leadership team and board, because it will support you getting investment into the right areas of the cybersecurity maturity program. Now, I have put together a ransomware tabletop sample scenario that you can take back and execute in your organizations. Day one, it's 8 a.m. in the morning. An employee receives a pop-up message indicating that files are encrypted and they will be rendered inaccessible within 48 hours. The bad actor is demanding 2.5 Bitcoin to restore the files. What are you going to do? So in your tabletop exercise around the room, who is there to provide input at this stage? Time is ticking away. 10 a.m., the incident response team begins to investigate and finds the files contained on the network are locked. Employees are starting to call service desk complaining that they can't access files. "11 a.m., an on-site contractor tweets about the incident. They've overheard employees talk about it, complaining to IT that they can't do anything. We've been hacked, all files encrypted, and they tag your company. So now it's in the public domain. 12 noon, the incident response team attempts to restore the backup files, but encounters a server problem. The scenario gets worse. 2 p.m. The time to pay the ransom is running out. What are your options? Who decides? What are you going to do? Restore from backups, decrypting tools, never pay the ransom. Again, who is in the room? Who part of your incident response exercise team to support you and the security team making these informed decisions? The outcome. You will have gained key insights from executing this tabletop exercise. You will have gained key insights into the various roles, activities, and dilemmas that you and your organization are faced with. A real-life security incident for you and your company to be prepared against, prepared to protect against ransomware. How will you respond? Who is there to make the decisions? It's on you. Please take this exercise back. Carry it out in your organizations. Be prepared and be resilient. And with that, I will pass over for any questions and answers. Thank you very much on behalf of myself and Jarad for listening.
Okay, thank you. We do have some questions coming through, so let me pick this one out because it's addressed to me. And the question is, some might say ransomware is a digital pandemic that may never go away. What gives you optimism that there will be light at the end of the tunnel? I think it's a fantastic question because there is a lot of fear about it, and it has seemed to go from bad to worse over the years. I am optimistic about it for a couple of reasons, that it will get better. Number one, I think people are getting far more clued up about the risks that there are, and that's step number one. If you're not aware that, say, as a particular area there are pickpockets operating in the area, you're more likely to fall victim to it. But once you're aware that there are pickpockets, then you are going to take more measures to try and protect your valuables. And so I think that continual awareness is rising. I think number two, one of the big facilitators in this whole ransomware pandemic is the unregulated nature of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoins. And I think that we will see probably some level, some form of regulation take place that will make it easier to possibly recover funds or to track down perpetrators behind these. And we have seen some international takedowns in this regard, where law enforcement have cooperated across borders and taken down some big gangs. And the final thing I think is that there's a lot of good innovation that's taking place in the technology side of security. So as we see, even if we see more adoption of, say, things like multi-factor authentication take place, if people get more savvy about using password managers, if we have better endpoint detection controls that can block some ransomware from executing, then all these things, I think, coming together, we will see things get better over time. So I'm an optimist by nature. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Eve, I think the next question that's popped up is probably more directed towards you. It's like, should all tabletop attendees be present in person in the meeting room?
Oh, that's a great question, and thanks for asking it. In an ideal world, everybody would be in the meeting room together, but that's not the case. We all operate at a global level now, having our business services and technologies available around the clock across the globe. So it's not always possible to have everybody in the room. However, with the latest technologies in collaboration tools and video streaming, it is possible to have global representation for tabletop exercises. And it's totally it's a necessary. because across different geographies, having the right message and response there supports reducing the business impact and consequences. A great example of that is I'm based in Dublin, Ireland, and so I would participate in the one login tabletop exercises on a quarterly basis, looking at it from a global DPO perspective, but also as the EMEA trust and security leader. So I'm there, I'm able to represent the business from Europe and also from a privacy side as the DPO. I hope that answers the question. Back to you, Javad. Is there any more questions there in the chat for us?
Oh, yeah. So this one's again for you, Neem. Are there any other more use cases for tabletop exercises other than that for ransomware?
I definitely agree that there are going to be many use cases that you can test, both from a production perspective, if you are providing services in the cloud to your customers and partners, as well as the employee side in relation to the corporate infrastructure.
Cool. I'll take this next question that's come in. It's saying, is having a password manager dangerous for an organization? One password to guests, then gain access to all of them. I think that there is definitely a risk that you very rightly mentioned, that is a risk, because if you have all your passwords in one place, then that's only one password for the criminals to get into. So I think it's important just to look at this in terms of risk. Now, if you don't have a password manager, what will the majority of us do? The majority of people will choose either simple passwords or they will reuse the same passwords across many sites. And that is a far greater risk at the moment when you look at the scheme of things. So compared to that, having a password manager reduces the overall risk. Now, how do you add additional controls to this? You can also use a password manager that supports multi-factor authentication, or you could only use a partial password in there, and then you have another element that you add on yourself that you remember. So there are some things you can do. If you're a security expert or you have a highly privileged account, then you might be willing to go through many steps to secure the account, and that's absolutely essential, especially in organizations where you have admins and what have you. But when you look about the general population, it's always a case about managing the risk reduction with convenience. If you make it too inconvenient for people, they're just not going to adopt something. So I think it's about getting the adoption and trying to reduce the risk. But I mean, we are seeing some organizations move towards more passwordless type authentication. I know Microsoft and Google are moving towards that. So I think that once it gains adoption, and this will it's a slow process, but once it gets mainstream adoption, I think then this will be one less problem to worry about. It'll probably introduce some other problems, but this will be one less thing to worry about.
And just to add to that, yeah, I totally agree. From an end user perspective, it's all about streamlining your access and applying multi-factor authentication to the different access into the different systems. And yes, passwordless is an option. That's our area of expertise here at OneLogin. It's what we do best in providing end users with secure ways of accessing their data and the system. But foundation to that is streamlining access for the end users so they are able to easily identify what's a legitimate access control page into data and systems. So please come and speak to us about how we can help you with that.
Cool. The next question, I'll take a stab at it first, Niamh, unless you want to jump in, is when do you think governments and corporations will take more responsibility for this kind of thing, such as the WannaCry situation, and have an independent party step in instead? It's a challenging one because so WannaCry spread because of a vulnerability called Eternal Blue, and that was actually discovered and hoarded by the NSA in America, and that was leaked, and then criminals got hold of it, and they used that as the mechanism to spread WannaCry from computer to computer to computer like a worm without any human interaction. So, I mean, that's the underlying, I think, the ethos behind the question. Um, this is a really tough one because we have as we've moved into a increasingly digital world where everything is digital, and we haven't quite realized how dependent we are on things. And this is best illustrated when something goes down, like a few weeks ago, Facebook went down. So Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp went down, and all of a sudden you realize how dependent you are on these services. There's been instances where a certain data center of Amazon's has gone down, and there's been Roombas, like those automatic hoovers, the vacuums in people's houses, they've stopped working because they need connection to the data center, because that's how it remembers what your house is mapped out like. So I think we're in this place where there's a lot of uncertainty, and we're coming to terms with how much the impact is. So there is a lot of work going on behind the scenes in terms of regulation and trying to work out what the best way forward is. It's going to be tough, though, I think, when to get governments to come to agreement as to what's the best way and not the best way. And it will take some time, but I think the journey towards that maturity has been taken.
Yeah, Javed, I'd totally agree with what you said there. That being said, I look at GDPR around privacy within the EU and EMEA, and how successful that has been. And I think that something around cybersecurity being regulated is well overdue and well needed. We're all operating at a global level now. And the more awareness and the more threat intelligence we can share within regions like the EU and at a global level, the better chance that we have against the fight against cybercrime.
Cool. I'll pass this question to you, Niamh. I think you're far more apt at. Could you please name a few best password manager free tools for home use?
I'm going to recommend OneLogin. Get yourself set up either with a development free trial or a free trial account. And I'm telling you, once you see how easy it is to use, how it protects your data and systems, you're going to be not only using it at home, but also encouraging it to be used in your workplace.
Cool. Next question. Outside of education, do you have recommendations on how to stop end users from introducing phish attacks? Education seems to help for some users, but not all. So I'll start this off. I think there's many things we can do, especially as organizations. We can put in place like a layered defensive approach, so you can reduce the number of emails, malicious emails that actually reach the inbox of a user. After that, education is a key part once it reaches the user's inbox, and having the right tools in place for them to report something is also very, very important. So at KnowBe4, we offer something called a phish alert button. It's just a button that integrates into your email client. So if something looks like a phishing email or suspicious, you're not sure whether it's right or wrong, you click it and it takes it out and it sends you to your security team, and they can then investigate that email. And if it's fine, they can give it back to you and say that's not a problem. If it's malicious, then they can actually search for it in everyone's inbox and remove it from everyone's inbox all in one go. So you only need one person to be proactive, and that can help everyone within the organization. But say someone does click on something, that's where you need these other preventive controls. So you need to create the environment where people are able to say, I clicked on this, I think I've screwed up, so that you can contain the incident very quickly. And then you can also have some controls in place. So like I said, there's some endpoint detection response controls that are getting quite advanced now that can help isolate your system from the rest of the network very quickly. Or you can, if you have like good authentication controls in place, then you can prevent account hijacking and going on to other systems. But it is very much a layered approach, and I don't think you can completely remove the human from it, especially when there are some of these BEC or CEO fraud type emails, which they don't actually contain anything, any link or attachment. It's just someone emailing you, pretending to be the CEO, saying, send some money to this new company. There's just no technical control available today to prevent that.
Yeah, and just to build on from that, there is an actual natural rate of phishing, and that varies between 12 and 14% in an organization. So no matter what you do from a technical perspective, people and process, you will always have this percentage of risk associated with that. From my side, I think it's understanding, sitting down with your end users and understanding the challenges around phishing, and then building that into your training and awareness program, incorporating that into training, making sure that your awareness is carried out at least on a quarterly basis, and it factors in the various different threats. And then on top of that, it's the assurance. So it's doing the associated drills within your organization to test your end users. So when they do receive these phishing emails and voice phishing as well, and SMS phishing, how do they respond? Are they responding correctly? And that's where your measurement comes in. And in an organization where I worked when I took over global training and awareness, phishing was at a rate of 49%. And I did over a year and a half get it down to that 12 to 14%, the natural rate. But it took constant investment, setting the tone from the top of the organization, carrying out the training, doing the awareness exercises, and also the assurance part of it.
Cool. Next question, I think, is towards you. The hackers might have advanced technology to hack into the computers and systems. Since it is a large business for them, how can we keep ourselves up to date for those attacks and be prepared?
It's through a comprehensive program of people, processes, and technologies, and making sure that from a governance process perspective, all new technologies coming into your organization, that your incident response team are aware of them, that they're getting access to the logs to be able to build in sophisticated monitoring and alerting. It's understanding what data is stored within those systems, the classifications of that. Again, that allows you to make an informed decision around your incident response. We know that there's certain types of data that are regulated at a global level, but also at an industry level and a regional level. PII is a great example, personally identifiable information, financial data. So that the categorization of the data associated with the alerting allows your incident response team to put it into a P1, P2, P3, or P4 category, and allows decisions to be made quickly around what needs to be done to prevent an incident, an event becoming a breach.
Cool. Next question is, AI appears to be helping to predict emerging cyber threats. From your experience, how effective has this approach been? I think it's getting there. There's a lot of technology masquerading as artificial intelligence, where it's just a bunch of people pulling on a bunch of strings and whistles. But there is a lot of advancement on that side. And I think what we're not going to see a massive big bang. AI has now taken over these functions. But what we are seeing in a lot of technologies and products out there is a gradual, slow implementation to complement some of the processes. And it's starting like from narrow use cases to help automate and get better decisions quicker. And it's been spreading out. So I think in the future, we in the coming years, we are going to see more and more AI being built into it. And we might even get to this stage where it's who's got the better AI, the criminals or the defenders, and there's going to be these massive AI wars like you see in sci-fi movies. But I think that's where we are today. I think there is a lot of promise there.
From a one login perspective, we do use AI part of our risk assessment intelligence engine that really enables us to make informed decisions through our product offering, or our customers make informed decisions around, is this Niamh Muldoon, is this the identity of the person that is trying to log in? Why is Niamh Muldoon trying to log in from the US when she's normally based in Dublin, Ireland, and accessing the systems at night or during the day when she normally doesn't go near them at the weekends, or whatever the different scenarios is if I change my user behavior. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings around AI. And I think if security companies and vendors are clear with their end users on how they're using their data and what they're using it for in relation to the risk modeling to be able to advance the technologies, they're more than likely going to get access to and consent to have that data there to be used for that business purpose. And like what you said, Jared, it's a race against time, against the cyber criminals who's going to use AI better or build out better models around it. So the more transparent we can be about the use of data, the better chance that we have in the fight against cybercrime.
Okay, cool. I've been told this is our last question for now. We will get back to your questions if we haven't got to them now. But due to the recent pandemic, shift in digitalization has increased, hence the cyber focus has increased. And everyone is talking more about security than before. How do we sustain the focus toward this? So that's a really good question, is like, how do you maintain the momentum? And I think we need to view it as a marathon, not a sprint. You can't just suddenly make everyone aware and that's it. People don't work like computers. You can't just download the software and that's it, set for life. We are in this very this state of flux at the moment. So someone like myself, I grew up without social media, and then social media came later in life. Then I made a lot of mistakes, like you post stuff on social media that now you look back and think, oh, that was embarrassing. And then you start leaving social media, and then you come onto work, and then you make mistakes in the workplace using this technology as it emerges. And I think we're in that phase where we're making mistakes and we're learning as we go along. So I think there'll be this education piece that will continue, but I think what's also interesting is we've got this newer generation that are kind of digital natives. And in some ways, they are more savvy, but in some ways, they're also quite naive as to some of the impact that can happen. So this needs to be more of a societal issue. And this is why I think it's important, like when you get together with your families, it's important to discuss these things, or, not to be a killjoy at family dinners or anything, but it's just useful advice that we need to pass out. And I think this is something that we need to teach future generations, just like how we teach them how to safely cross a road. We need to teach them how to safely use internet connected device. So when your 10-year-old, 5-year-old child picks up a device, you can start having those conversations as to what's appropriate and acceptable and what's inappropriate and unacceptable. Because ultimately, the technology is the technology, but there are still people on either end, and it's their behaviors. So we have lots of these issues now, say like cyberbullying is a big issue. That wasn't there before. Before there was bullying, but it was just done face to face. Now it's done by it's using technology as a medium. So there is that need to adapt those learnings and skills for the digital era and bring them up. And I think it's just one of those things. If we keep at it, it's a bit like when you think about something like recycling or environmental awareness. Growing up, it wasn't an issue. We just threw everything into one bin. Now in the office, there's like 5 different bins for 5 different types. You separate things out and you do it, and you don't even think about it now. So I think if we continually build and we try to build, we architect our solutions, like the technologies, in a way that helps people to be more secure, it will be a slow drip process that will take hold of everyone eventually.
Digitalization is here to stay for sure, and trust and security, trust being privacy, compliance, and security, is a core component to your digitalization strategy. for you to be successful. Identity and access management, again, is the foundation to your success. So understanding who and what is trying to access your infrastructure, how are they trying to access on what you do. So building and selecting an identity and access management provider, a trusted provider, can really help you accelerate your digitalization program and systems, and providing your key services around the clock. One Login carried out 2 remote access surveys over the course of the pandemic, at the start and towards the end. And some of the findings are really interesting. They highlight that people haven't captured security part of their digitalization strategy. 22% hadn't applied or updated their antivirus software or patching, which, oh my God, is a total shock. And Javid, goes back to your presentation around ransomware. We know that if we don't patch our environments, it can be a vulnerability and an avenue for ransomware attack to be executed. And then 13% hadn't done any changes around security, so they haven't invested in a security program at all. For anyone who hasn't seen those reports, they're available on our website for download. So yet again, I would reiterate the importance of applying trust and security as a dedicated stream, a core component to your digital transformation programs, if it's not already there.
Cool. With that, I think we're out of time. This stream will be available for 24 hours. Thank you, everyone, for participating and for your wonderful questions. We will try to get back to them in due course. Up until then, this is available 24 hours. Thank you from me, Javad Malik from KnowBe4, and from Niamh Muldoon from One Login.
Yeah.
So have a wonderful day, everyone.